How are you? Lovely to see you as usual. Oh, smart and enthusiastic, aren't you? Well, I this is one of my favorite stories. It's about elephants, and you will discover. I was really surprised when I read the story that the elephants are so sensitive, loyal, intelligent, and they have a great memory, and they're very sensitive. They are one of the most intelligent animals in the world. Maybe you can look up who's the most intelligent, but this must be in top three. Animals are, and this story really gave me an insight into the psyche and intelligence of an elephant, and their loyalty. Just like dogs. You'll be surprised, I'm sure. So let's get started. The name of the story is Revenge, and an old Burmese man tells this first person story which takes place in the teak forests of Burma when it was a British crown colony. Okay. Elephants were used to drag the immense tree trunks into the rivers for transportation. The logs frequently jammed, and then an elephant would use its skill and weight to unblock the jam. At this time, the Burmese workers were under the control of an English overseer, Mackay, an unpleasant young man whom the men called Mackay Thakin. The day before the story starts, Mackay had ordered the Burmese overseer to send in one of his elephants to unblock a mass of jammed logs. Afraid to disobey, Mackay, the Burmese overseer, had ordered his nephew on his gentle elephant, Shwe Dog, that's the name of the elephant, to obey this very dangerous order. Whilst carrying out the order, the nephew was killed by a falling log. Right? It was dangerous because a log tumbling over could kill, and there were like 80% chances of that, and unfortunately his nephew died when he was riding Shwe Dog, who was helping him. The storyteller begins his story just after the nephew has been buried. Okay. I was staying the night as always in the Sin Oaks Thai. We ate a sparse meal, and afterwards I stepped outside to smoke. Now, Sin Oak is the Burmese overseer under Mackay's command, right? All right. Usually a camp is full and bustling at that time of the day. But now I saw, to my astonishment, that there was no one about. I could hear nothing but frogs and owls and the feathery flapping of great jungle moths. Absent also was that most familiar and reassuring of a camp sounds, the tinkling of elephants' bells. Evidently, no sooner had the soil been tamped down on the dead man's grave than the other Uzes had begun to flee the camp, taking their elephants with them. Now, Uzes are the elephants' handlers or riders, right? So they all wanted to leave. Everybody was sad and unhappy. The only elephant that was still in the camp's vicinity was Shwe Dog, the dead man's mount. The Sin Oak had taken charge of the nephew's riderless elephant after the accident. She was restless, he said, and nervous, frequently flapping her ears and clawing the air with the tip of her trunk. This was neither uncommon nor unexpected, for the elephant is, above all, a creature of habit and routine, so pronounced and unequal upheaval as the absence of a long familiar handler. So why is he doing all this? Why is he agitated, edgy, restless, angry? This upheaval was pronounced as the absence of a long familiar handler can put even the gentlest of elephants out of temper, often dangerously so. So the elephants, though they are enormous, but they are gentle elephants generally by temper. But once you incite them or provoke them, and there's a reason, then they can be dangerous. So you can understand that this elephant, Shwedo, was restless and missing her rider, her mount, and was very upset. This being the case, the Sin Oak had decided not to allow Shwetok to forage through the ride, as was the rule. Instead, he had led her to a clearing some half-miles distance from the camp. Keep guessing why is he keeping him at a distance, and supplied her with a great pile of succulent tree top branches, so he wouldn't have to go look for food, right? Then he had tethered her securely between two immense and immovable trees. To be doubly sure of keeping her bound, he had used not the usual lightweight fetters with which elephants are shackled at night, but the heavy iron towing chains that are employed in the harnessing of logs. This, he said, was precaution. A precaution against what? I asked. He gave me a sidelong glance and said in a soft, slippery voice, just a precaution. There now remained in the camp only the Sin Oak and me, and of course, Meketakin in his tie. It had not rained much through the day, but with the approach of evening clouds had begun to mass in the sky. And by the time I blew my lamp out and rolled out my mat, there was not a star to be seen. Soon the storm broke. Rain came pouring down and thunder went pealing back and forth across the valleys. I had been asleep perhaps an hour or two when I was woken by a trickle of water leaking through the bamboo roof. I was almost asleep again when through the chatter of the rain, I heard a tiny fragile sound, a distant tinkling. It was far away but approaching steadily. And as it drew nearer, I recognized the unmistakable ringing of an elephant's bell. Do you hear that? I whispered to the Sin Oak. What is it? It is the cow, Shwetok. And Uzi knows an elephant by its bell. It is by following that sound that he locates his mount every morning after its long foraging in the forest. So the elephants recognize them through their riders' bells. Perhaps, I ventured, Shwetok was panicked by the storm. Perhaps she managed to break loose of her fetters. If she had broken loose, the Sin Oak said, the chains would still be dragging on her feet. He paused to listen. But I hear no chains. No, she has been freed by a human hand. So somebody else is angry with the Sin Oak, right? Yeah, for sending his nephew, oh my God, to unjam the logs. And so there is another rider. But whose could that hand be? I asked. He silenced me abruptly with a raised hand. Shh! The chains would still be dragging to her feet. The bell was very close now, and the hut was shivering to the elephant's tread. I started to move towards the ladder, but the Sin Oak pulled me back. No, he said, stay here. The next morning, the sky was split by lightning. In the momentary glare of that flat sheet of light, I saw Shwetok directly ahead, moving towards the tie, with a head lowered and a trunk curled under her lip. I jumped to my feet and began to shout in warning, "Thakin, Meki Thakin!" Meki Thakin had already heard the bells, felt the tremor of the elephant's approaching weight again. Maybe this can explain to you what will happen and what is happening. The elephant, right? And can you see the thatched roof of the cottage? And Mekhe with his, what? With his rifle. Sinuk, okay. Where was I? Yeah, I'm sorry, just give me a second. I lost where I was. He had Mekhi Thakin had already heard the bells, felt the tremor of the elephant's approaching wave. A flame flickered in one of the tie's windows, and the young man appeared on the veranda with a lantern in one hand and his hunting rifle in the other, like I showed you in the picture. 10 feet from the tie, Shwetok came to a standstill. She lowered her head as though she were examining the structure. The structure of the cottage. Wow. She knew, can you imagine, who had sent her rider, her mount, her owner to the dangerous place. And he knew it was dangerous also. And it was because of him that his mount had died. Isn't that an amazing intelligence? She was an old elephant trained in the ways of the working herd. Such animals are skilled in the arts of demolition. It takes them no more than a glance to size up a dam of snagged wood and pick the point of attack. Mekhi Thakin fired just as Shwetok began her charge. She was so close now that he could not miss. He hit her exactly where he had aimed, in her most vulnerable spot between the ear and eye. Here. But the momentum of Shwetok's charge carried her forward even as she was dying. On her feet, she too hit the tie exactly where she had aimed. At the junction of the two cross beams that held it together of the cottage, the structure appeared to explode with logs and beams and thatch flying in the air. Mekhi Thakin was catapulted to the ground over Shwetok's head. He landed on fallen Shwetok's head. Shwetok turned now until she was facing the assistant's prone body. Then very slowly she allowed her dying weight to go crashing down on the mud. Oh my God. Oh my God. Can you imagine? On him, head first, her weight rolling over in a circular motion. I threw myself down the hut's ladder with the sin oak close behind me, running towards the tie. I stumbled in the darkness and fell face first on the mud. The sin oak was helping me up when a bolt of lightning split the sky. Suddenly he let go of my hand and unloosed a hoarse, stammering shout. "What is it?" I said. "What did you see?" Look down at the ground. Lightning flashed again, and I saw directly ahead of me the huge scalloped mark of Shwetok's feet. But beside it was a smaller impression, curiously shapeless, almost oblong. "What is it?" I said. "What's made that mark?" "It is a footprint," he said. "Human footprint." So somebody had let loose Shwetok and let him do what she wanted to do. Can you imagine taking revenge and knowing who did it, who had ordered his master? Isn't that amazing? And I was shocked. Then there is another interconnected story. This has been written by an author who was an English vet, and the name of the story is Ma Keo, English vet who worked in the teak forests of Burma. Now Ma Keo is a Burmese name. He looked after the elephants which worked in the teak forests, as did Shwetok in the previous story. Because of his work with the elephants, he was known as Elephant Bill. So who was known as Elephant Bill? The veterinary surgeon, the doctor, the animal doctor. In the text, he describes his experience with a she-elephant called Ma Keo, which he had previously treated by wounds. Treated for wounds inflicted on her back by a tiger, because they lived in forests, right? So Ma Keo is the name of a she-elephant. Okay. I know without question that an elephant can be grateful for relief given to it from pain and sickness. For example, I remember one elephant, Ma Keo, she had fearful lacerations on the barrel of her back from tiger claws, and I treated her for them every day for 3 weeks. In the early stages, she suffered great pain, but although she made a lot of fuss, rather as an 8-year-old child might have done, she always gave way because I was determined it must be painful, and she let me go on. So it would protest but then would let in because she knew it would help her. When she was sufficiently healed, I sent her back to the camp under a reliable Burman with instructions that she was to be given light dressings of fly repellent on the wounds. So he took care of her for 3 weeks every day and was gentle. And Ma Keo understood that this doctor was a healer and her helper, and had attended her wounds and helped her get back to health. I did not see her again for 2 months. I was having a cup of tea, says the doctor, in camp outside my tent, while several elephants were being washed in the creek nearby, ready for me to inspect them. The last animal to come out of the creek and to return to camp to dry off before inspection was Ma Keo. As she passed me about 50 yards away with a rider on foot following her at her heel, I called out more in order to greet him and show that I recognized him. Hello there. Then, because of any interest in the animal, which I was anyhow going to inspect in less than an hour's time. How is Ma Keo's back? Her rider did not reply, as he had not caught what I said, but Ma Keo swung around at right angles, turned to the direction in which she was going, and came towards me. Changed the direction. She heard the vet's voice. She walked straight up to me where I was sitting. I patted her on the trunk and gave her a banana off my table. And then, without any word of command, she dropped into the sitting position and leant right over towards me so as to show me her back. Having patted her, I told her to get up and away she went, leaving me with the agreeable conviction that she had come to say thank you. Then I began to suspect that perhaps on hearing my voice, with which she had become familiar in 3 weeks, she had done it merely from habit. But later on, when I inspected her, I got a surprise. She was the last in the row, and I went over her back very carefully, kneading the wounds with my hands, and I found one little hole which still separated. There was great tenderness along a line 9 inches long where the wound had healed over. It was undoubtedly infected. Ma Kyo let me open it up to its full length there and then, although my doing so obviously gave her great pain, but she was a good patient. This made me think over the incident again. I can never be quite sure that she came and showed me her back in order to tell me that it was still painful, but I'm sure that she liked me, trusted me, and was grateful, and that we were very good friends. Can you imagine how gentle, how sensitive, how kind they can be? And Shweto, what's her name? Kameo. I'm so sorry. It's a Ma Kyo. I reversed the name. Ma Kyo remembered him, and she knew she could trust him, and he had helped her heal her wounds. And imagine coming and bowing and getting petted, in a way saying thank you by bowing in front of him like this, and then turning around, going back in the line, and then coming back again when her turn came, getting the back inspected and let the doctor deal with it, causing a lot of pain. When a wound gets infected, it gets very tender, but she allowed it. She knew it was for her good. See how smart they are, how kind. So when the master's death was very painful, that's why Shwetok took the revenge. But here, the doctor, the vet, has helped him heal its wounds. It comes and says thank you and understands. Wow, I was really amazed by these stories. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did. I love them. And you're always welcome to suggest what kind of stories and what story would you like me to read. I'll wait for your suggestions. Thank you so much. I had a lovely time with you guys. You have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.